All right, today, I wanted to give you some context of how our last 48 hours was, about how we feel about the NCAA tournament, not getting in, and about the NIT. I'll answer a few questions at the end about those two subjects, and I hope you respect that. Any other questions about any other topic, I'll answer later. But I just didn't have to do this today, but for Sooner Nation fans, people, I wanted them to have a little context instead of inferring some different things. I'm here today not with some written, predetermined speech that someone handed me. This is me speaking from the heart about our guys, the devastation, the hurt they're going through, and about just me from the heart about being the leader of this program, about our guys. I'm going to take you through on these two topics. Roughly a year ago today, I was reminiscing with Los and Sam and Ortega yesterday. A year ago today, after guys went in the portal, who was left was Yaya Keita, Luke Norweather, Sam Godwin, Ortega Owe, and Milo Suzan. That was our roster after the portal. And my incredible staff sat around and we were like, we are going to build an NCAA tournament team the right way with guys that represent Oklahoma. Starting from that, 3 post players and just 2 guards who were freshmen returning. And we recruited a group of young men that I would go to battle with at any time. I enjoyed working every single day going with these guys and put ourselves in a position, building that from this point forward. I look at from December 1st, every single day since December 1st, our young guys woke up, right or wrong, and we look at a bracket, and Oklahoma was in a bracket. There wasn't a day from December 1st on. Now, if we lost a game, we might slide a seed. And as a coach, I know better to look at those things because I know there's a lot left. But for young people, every single day from December, they're looking at a bracket and they're in it. The first time since December 1st they looked up that they were not included was on the bracket reveal. And I'll say this, it's not who I am. I'm not here to talk about any other team or any other conference. That's not who I am. I would never want to take the joy away from a young student athlete or a coach that's in it right now. It's not who I am. So you're not going to bait me into questions or get me to say anything bad about another team that is included or a conference that's included. Because I just don't want to take the joy away from them. But I will talk about the complete hurt and how dumbfounded I am of why Oklahoma wasn't included. And I have not been told a reason. That day of, I know there's a lot of talk of bracketologists, and I didn't know this. I guess there's like 120 of them. Didn't know that. But if you take like the top 20 reputable ones, there's not one that didn't have a sin. There's not one. 2 years ago, we were the last team out. And I'll have to say personally, I didn't feel there was a lot of split. There's a lot of reasons why. And as hard as it was being the last ones out 2 years ago, there's some compelling things that I could say that of what it was told me, and as hard as I was, I could see it. I feel totally different right now. I feel such hurt for the young guys who put so much into it that they don't have answers. That why they were left out when every single day, the response I'm getting from people in the media, other coaches, we had you in. I can't get an answer from anybody to tell me why. And I think that's where the flaw comes in of the process. And I'm not going to sit here and call out any things, and I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole. I'm just going to say that the system is flawed because you hear different reasons of why a team got in. This team might got in for their net. This team got in because of their strength of schedule. This team got in because they had this many quad one wins. This team got in because they didn't have as many bad losses. This team got in because they're leading. Whatever it is, you hear differently. There's no consistency of why a team got in. That's to me where, like, this metric, their KenPom was better, their BPI was better. There's no consistency. There's always a reason that is shown to fit an answer what they give you. If there's 20 people that are absolute experts at studying all the metrics, if they study every metric, and those top 20 people who do that and study it all have Oklahoma in, that's a concern for me about the system. Of then why, when you look at some teams that are in, our metrics are better than a lot of them. And that is what I have to give our guys answers and their families. Families that believed in what we're doing. And to go back to that story of where we were a year ago. We sat there 2 games below, we finished the game 2 games below 500 a year ago right now. With those 5 guys staying. And from that point on, in the number 1 league in the country by every analytic, we went plus 10. We went from 2 games below to 20 wins in 8 games. That's a plus 10 turnaround. And for all intent and purposes, we're an NCAA tournament team. We had to overcome the craziest Saturday that I can remember of 5 bid Steelers. And I'm so incredibly proud of our guys of fighting through what they did. The resiliency. You know, injuries are part of the game. I get it. But those are tough to handle. We were 18-6 ranked. We were 7-6 in quad 1 and 2 when we had a couple guys go down and from that forward. But the resilience of fighting through to get where we were, and then to sit there on the bracket show when every indication was that we were in, and we're not. So I'm proud of the year that went on. No one will look as a coach at what we could have done better. I, more than anybody, being along as myself, I look at what could I have controlled. Where could we have found 2 more points in this game? Where could we have found 2 more points in that game? So that's what I start with internally. But then I think about the end result, where we were at. From that starting point in 1 year, my staff worked so incredibly hard in an era of the NIL when this is really the first year that we really had some. And that's the fact of the matter. And we made a huge jump. But I go back to thinking about our guys and not getting in, and I can't get an answer. I know you're going to ask me, what have you been heard? No one can tell me an answer. And that's where I think the flawed system is. You know, some people will say they didn't want 9 Big 12 teams in. Well, that's not a good reason. Some people say, oh, the Big 12 gamed the system. I can name almost 10 teams that had 13, 14, 16, 17 quad 3 and 4 games. We had 11. So you can't say that. There's a lot of things that I'm not going to go into so many details because people will, you know, always pick apart the metrics. But that was there's not a specific gauge to go by while you're in or out to tell these teams. Is it strength of record? Is it net? Net really does the efficiency. Doesn't it count in your opponent? The strength of record goes into the quality opponent and all that. That's a telling one. Ours was 31, very high. So that's, and then I want to give you some context for our guys. The resilience they showed, the families, the group of coaching staff that I had, I couldn't be more proud of who they are. But instead of inferring, I wanted to share with you, put you in our shoes in the room. So we sat there since December 1st, and the guys felt there was never an indication Oklahoma wasn't in until the reveal. The raw emotion in that room was so real. These unbelievable young men, the tears, hugging each other, the disbelief, the anger, the range of emotions was raw. Trying to find the words to explain to them, I had none. I don't know why the metrics, why we weren't included. And trying to find words in those 10 or 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden having to say to them, do you want to play in the NIT? It never was a thought. And it's absolutely not to disparage the NIT. I think it's a storied tournament. It's not to say, people infer that some coaches wanted to go start on the portal. That's not where we were. We weren't about those, it wasn't even about those two teams. I will coach to the last bounce I can possibly coach. And I told my guys that. I said, I will coach, I will develop, I will teach, I will compete for this school to the last bounce. So nobody can infer what it is. It was an incredible raw emotion that these kids had to make a decision in 15 minutes after heartbreaking news with some of the guys that will never have a chance to play in the NCAA tournament again. And that's the fact of the matter. I wish there's some teams that has 72 hours to kind of soak in that they weren't in, that can comprehend that they weren't in the tournament, and then they can make a decision to play in. There was none of that. It was hurt, pain, tears, emotion, and then, hey, but we got 20 minutes to make this decision. And that's the fact, is that we didn't feel we had enough guys to field the team, more than 5 guys or 6 guys to field to play in it. And that's the reality of it. And that's, for people can infer, it was no other reason than that. But completely, on one hand, what these guys went through, the resiliency the last couple weeks with some injuries to fight through in this league, to be where we were a year ago today. And I will say this too, we're at that same point. And I'll talk later, but where we're going with this, you know, my parents, who were unbelievable people, I'm hurting for the players and their families more than any of us, the coaches. But my parents taught me, character's how you respond when things don't go your way. And how we're going to respond of getting gutted and devastated by this news is, I remember feeling how bad we felt a year ago of being 2 games below 500 and all the work we put in. And I look at the year of absolutely everywhere we went, trying to get this fan base going, trying to get a roster in all this time to go plus 10. That there's going to be no less acceleration on our efforts for Oklahoma basketball. My staff, players, where we're going, this was a devastating blow. But I know, for all intents and purposes, from a year ago to now, where we were and what we did, for all intents and purposes, we were an NCAA tournament team. We had some crazy circumstances out of our control on a Saturday with 5 bid steals, with some injuries, and then, in my opinion, getting snubbed. But how we're going to respond is with work, with energy, enthusiasm, with class. That's why there's no way you're going to get me to talk about another conference, another team, a specific name, anybody. I don't want to take the joy from them, because we will have our joy. We will have our joy.
With that, we'll have a few brief questions or